Hello, happy Tuesday. Hope everybody's doing great. Had a great start to your week. I am just going to give it a couple seconds here to let some folks know, let the notifications run its course to let them know that I am live. And while we're waiting for that, I am going to head and just do a brief introduction of who I am, what we're talking about here today, and what we've talked about last week as we are running this awesome mini series that I kicked off last week, and what you can expect to learn in today's training. So again, my name is Jessie Sletton. For those of you who are new here, thank you so much for following me. Thank you for finding my little piece of the internet. This is where you can find great tips, tricks, and recommendations for preparing for your postpartum time frame. My name is Jessie Sletton, and I am your postpartum empowerment coach, and I am the owner of Empowering Postpartum. So I have my Facebook running on my laptop here and my Instagram running on my phone up above. We're real fancy around here. No streaming services, just multiple pieces of technology. So I am keeping my fingers crossed that everything goes smooth today. But I am so glad that we are up and running, and we have been really working through a fun mini series this past week and into this week. And it's been all about how to create a comfortable and supportive postpartum recovery space before baby arrives. So I talk so much about this, if you've been following me for a while, about how so much of our time and energy goes into preparing for birth, preparing for having, all the gear and the things we think is necessary for our baby, taking the birthing classes, making sure we're taking the lactation courses, understanding the latest and greatest bottles. All of these things are important, but they also make a lot more noise than the things that we don't think as, clearly about, which is everything after. And our own well-being, moving and transitioning into parenthood. This is a huge transformation. It is something that affects not only our physical recovery, our physical body, and the changes that we endure during pregnancy, but it also really shapes the way our identity shows up, the becoming and unbecoming of who we are. All of these things that are so, we understand them from a high level, but once we're in it, we understand how truly just disruptive, honestly, it can be. In many ways, it's a beautiful disruption. It's a gorgeous transformation, but in other ways, it can be extremely hard as well. And understanding that it's this spectrum is really important, and putting things into place before baby comes, before birth, that can really help us navigate those changes, makes it so much smoother, makes it so that you are able to actually be present mentally and physically with your little one, to help you with your bonding, help you with your feeding journey, help you be closer with your partner through all these changes and any older children you might have. All of it is connected, and it all begins and is centered around your own well-being. And so this is just the tip of the iceberg, what we're talking about today with creating this supportive space for you to recover in. There's so much more that goes into this though, right? And if we're talking about a full existence, like transformation, that it makes sense that there's more than just these little things that we can work on that are very important, but it's a deeper understanding of how to support your body, mind, and spirit through this transition into parenthood. And that's no matter how many times you've gone through it, right? Each pregnancy and each birth is very different, and each postpartum is unique. So it's important that we understand what our resources are, who our support systems are, how to actually nourish our changed body and help ourselves heal deeply, because the impacts of that can last years down the line, and how we can bring all of that together into a plan that we feel really good about, that can still have room for being flexible when things, because birth happens, babies come the way they're going to come, right? And it's important to build out a plan that addresses the plan A's, but also the plan B's, C's, and D's, all of the things that can go wrong and all the things that can go right. Having something that is flexible enough for us to kind of pivot when we need to, and knowing our resources to rely on when we need some extra help. And that's where I come in with my Preparing for Parenthood Postpartum Planning Program. I call it the P4 program. So if you're following my page and you ever hear me say P4, it's a lot easier to say P4 than that big long name I just said. But that big long name I just said is also very descriptive. I want you to understand exactly what you're getting when you join and enroll in this program. And it's exactly that. You are being prepared for parenthood and learning how to plan for your postpartum. And so if this is something that you're interested in learning more about, I have opened up my calendar for some coffee chats, during the training that I've been putting on here. I've opened up some additional slots. So I'd love to just connect with you face to face, heart to heart. Let's sit down. Let's talk about what your goals are for postpartum. Let's talk about your perinatal journey so far. Let's talk about what your ideal postpartum looks like and what systems you have in place to make that a reality, and where those gaps are that we need to fill in, and how the P4 program can help you accomplish all of that by being, super supported, by having all of the things that you need and the resources that you need lined up before you actually need them. So you're not scrambling like a chicken with your head cut off once baby's here and you're drowning. So that's what I do. That's what the P4 program's all about. And I have my link to schedule a coffee chat with me in my bio. So feel free to look at that. My Instagram folks, Facebook, I have a pinned comment here on this video below that you can go directly to that link to schedule some time with me. And if you are wanting to meet and none of those times work out for you, just DM me. We'll make it happen. We'll find a time that works best for you. All right. Let's dive into our training today. This is day 4 of 6 for how to set up this supportive sanctuary, right, before baby gets here. Last week, we talked about choosing the right space. We talked about the furniture that you need to have in that room to really help you feel supportive and comfortable. And then we talked about creating a infant feeding station and the things that you need to stock up on to have everything you need within arm's reach to be able to be successful in your feeding journey. So if you want to look back at my feed, you'll find those videos. Instagram, I have it under its own series on here, so that makes it easy for you to find. Facebook folks, you can just search for the recovery space in the search bar, and you'll be able to find that. Or just scroll back through my events, and you can go back to the previous events, and the videos will be posted in there too. So today we're talking about stocking up on essential items, mostly for you, and then I also have a couple tips and tricks for baby, but we're going to be talking a little bit more about that in Thursday's training when we talk about creating a diaper changing station. So today I really want to focus heavily on the items that I recommend having for you that's really essential for your healing journey and for making things more comfortable for you as you are healing. This is not a comprehensive list. This is just some of the ones I thought might be different that you might not have heard of stocking up on before and why I recommend them. But I give a lot more product recommendations and all of those kind of things, what you should really be having for your particular journey, depending on your own health background, your own, birthing plans, all of those things. And we talk heavily about that in the P4 program, and I help you out with that as well. But today we're going to talk about some of my favorite items that can be pretty universal for all postpartum parents. So let's dive in and talk about kind of creating your own postpartum recovery kit. There are things on the market that you can buy that kind of have some of these great items in it, these recovery kits that are available online. I will say that some of them are really great. They're awesome, but some of them are also really expensive. And I feel like you can be a lot more strategic with what you have in your own recovery kit when you make it yourself. And so there's nothing wrong with going out and buying like the Freedom Mom kits. Those are amazing. I love that they are even thinking about creating these kind of things for us postpartum people because it's so needed. But it's also, I've heard a lot of feedback from people who have purchased that recovery kit and kits similar to that where they didn't use a lot of the products and they wish they would have had different things in those kits. So with taking that feedback and knowing what I know from my own postpartum recovery and talking to parents, I've kind of included some things that I think you can very easily buy one-offs, onesie-twosie things and be able to create your own recovery kit. So we're going to talk about that today. So number one is for number two. Okay, that was a really bad joke, sorry. But stool softener, okay? This is essential, I think, in having on hand. You may or may not need it, but when you need it, you're gonna wanna be able to have it right away. And you're not gonna wanna have to go out to the store or have somebody go out to the store for you to get this. I always say, like, whenever I'm talking to postpartum parents, like, it's like the number one thing most people bring up when I talk about what do you wish you had known before birth, you know, that you know now. And I'm not even kidding you. It always makes it in the top list of how scary that first poop can be after birth, whether you've given birth vaginally or whether you've had a belly birth and had a C-section. It's important that we support our digestive system in multiple ways. One of those ways is having a stool softener on hand so that you can make that a little bit easier for you after birth. There's a lot of different things that go into why we can struggle with constipation issues and a lot of other gut disruptions after birth and during pregnancy. First of all, it's kind of obvious, but we're going to call it out, right? Your entire insides are being rearranged. There's not a whole lot of room for your stomach, your intestines. We have to make room for baby. And so that can really slow down your digestive process and make things uncomfortable for a lot of different reasons. So that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind. Another thing is that you want to really incorporate higher fiber foods, healthy fats, things like that. Hydrate yourself. We talked a lot about that in the nursing and infant feeding station segment, having a water bottle handy and nearby. Coconut waters can be great. But having these higher fiber foods and healthy fats can really help keep our digestive system running smoothly. And there's a lot of benefit outside of that too, with some nutrient dense foods. And we're going to dive into that on day 6. Where I'm going to get into a lot more detail around the foods that we should be consuming to help support our healing bodies in postpartum. But number one, stool softener. You should have that guy on hand just in case. It's always important to try to do everything we can to make that more comfortable for ourselves post-birth. All right, and in similar vein, I always recommend having an inverted or an upside down peri bottle. These are great because you don't have to get your hands as dirty. Normal peri bottles that aren't inverted, sometimes you can kind of get your hand in the water, you can get some splashback. We want to avoid all of that as much as possible. And these designs, I should have grabbed mine, actually, I wasn't thinking. I used one after my second birth and it was a game changer compared to my first. But it has like usually an elongated nozzle and you don't have to, try to like squirt it in a way that you're getting a lot of mess with it. So I really recommend one of those. It's great because it can help, rinse without the harshness of wiping. You don't want to be wiping a lot right after birth. You're going to have potentially some stitches, you're going to have some soreness. So just rinsing that area clean can be really helpful, and it also can help with your healing as well. So you can use like warm water to be able to kind of provide that comfort and soothingness to help also get you clean. One of my favorite tips that I always give my clients when it comes to your peri bottle and having warm water on hand is sometimes it can take forever, right? You're standing at the sink, you turn on the warm water, and you're like waiting and waiting and waiting. Meanwhile, you have to go to the bathroom. So one of my favorite tips is having a sterilized crock pot that you can have in your bathroom space. that you just keep some warm water on the warm setting. Keep that in there for the day, and you'll, replenish that and replace it and clean it each night, or, a couple nights, or after every couple of nights, to make sure that that area stays clean. But you only want to ever put a clean peri bottle in there to get the water. But the point is that you're going to have warm water ready to go, and you can even incorporate, if you're wanting to do this, some other healing herbs and stuff that you can have in that water to help with your healing process as well. So that's one of my favorite tips, is to have a crock pot in hand that you can have water in it that you can fill your peri bottles up with, so you don't have to sit there and wait at the sink. Okay, I'm just going to do a real quick comment check, make sure I don't have anybody who's asking questions. Nobody on Facebook. I'm not seeing anybody on Instagram. If you do have questions, feel free to drop those. I will be sure to answer them. If not on the live, definitely on the replay in the comments. And if you are joining me live, say hello. I love to say hi and see where you're coming in from as we go through here. Okay, so the third thing I wanted to say that it's a good idea for you to think of investing in is a sitz bath. So you can do this in your bathtub, or one of my favorite products that they have that's fairly inexpensive is a small sitz bath basin that you can actually have fitted onto your toilet seat. So you can sit down, you can have this small basin of water, fill it with warm water, let your areas soak for 10 to 15 minutes. This really helps with soreness and to promote healing. Sitz baths are one of the most healing things we can incorporate into our postpartum rituals and routines. And having one of these basins on the toilet makes it really easy, because you don't have to wait and fill up a whole bath. If you want to take a bath, that's great. That's fine to do. But a sitz bath makes it really convenient, because you can have a very localized area where you don't have to fill a whole big tub and wait for that. So that's another recommendation that I always give for stocking up on. The next thing I wanted to talk about are cool packs. So a note on ice and healing. This is a super important piece to your healing regimen within the first 24 to 72 hours, give or take. Now, of course, this is not medical advice. You're going to want to talk to your healthcare provider based on your situation, but in general, we really don't want to use ice past that time frame, because we want it to be able to ice is great for inflammation, right? It's great for helping calm down any inflammation that's happening in that area, and it can feel so great to have that on hand and have that in those first 24 to 72 hours. After that, ice is important to kind of stop using and kind of replacing more with these warming practices that we've talked about, like the sitz baths, warm peri bottles, those kind of things. Because while ice is great for swelling, it also causes blood flow to be restricted. So, which is what we want when we have inflammation and swelling. But when we restrict blood flow for too long, we restrict some of our healing and we slow down our healing process. We need blood flowing to that area so that we can heal faster. So this is why I always give a little note of caution when it comes to ice packs, cooling packs, padsicles, all of those things that are very popular. Really make sure that you're not overusing those. They're great within those first 24 hours. They can feel heavenly. So having those on hand are great. You can purchase pre-made cooling packs, or you can do something as simple as diapers with ice in it. That's what a lot of the hospitals do, and it honestly works wonderfully. You can also make a few padsicles, have those on hand, but you don't need to go crazy with those. Just a handful are great and can be helpful. So, moving on to witch hazel pads. So Tux Pads is one of those popular brands out there that a lot of times even hospitals will send you home with. So you may or may not need to purchase these ahead of time, but it's always nice to have extras. So Tux Pads are great. They are medicated pads with witch hazel, which is a natural anti-inflammatory and astringent. So it can really help you with not only your soreness and stitches and healing with that, but also if you've had any sort of hemorrhoid problems or anything along those lines, they can be very healing for that as well and provide sort of just a natural relief to those issues. So those are great to have on hand and to kind of stock up on. So those are my main big ones that I like to call out and why they're so important to have and beneficial to have on hand. But some other items to think about having in your recovery kit are things like chapstick to keep your lips nice and moist, and you make sure that you are drinking lots of water, of course. You can also get perineal spray for pain. That can be a great thing to have on hand for those early days when you're really sore. Pain relievers such as ibuprofen or Tylenol can be great as well. Unscented hand lotion can be really useful, especially if you're living in a dry climate like me in Colorado, and you're going to be washing your hands a lot, right? So it's important to keep those moisturized, but you don't want a lot of heavy fragrances, not only for yourself, but you're going to be handling your baby a lot, and we don't want to get them having some sort of reaction to a fragrance. So having that unscented lotion can be really, really helpful. Same with sanitizer. I love having this. I talked about that in the diaper changing station. It's great because if you can't run and wash your hands right away, but you need to have clean hands, you can use the sanitizer in between hand washing. So that can be really helpful as well. Stocking up on maxi pads or disposable underwear as a really great thing to have on hand for that postpartum bleeding. Comfortable loungewear that if you are chest feeding, I really recommend having something that's like zipper or button because that makes it easy for that. You can still have that great skin to skin and something like that as well. All of these things are great to stock up on for your postpartum recovery for essential items. A couple of things that you can stock up on for your baby, which, like I said, we'll get into a little bit more detail with the diapers and things like that in creating the changing station this Thursday. But some things that I love recommending are just lots of really lightweight swaddling blankets. Can be really easy. They can be used as burp cloths, a little area for putting the baby on to change, to feed, to swaddle with. So those are great to have on hand. And then I love zippy sleepers. Snaps are the worst possible thing people put on baby clothing. I have never understood that. So the more zippers you can incorporate, the easier it will be for you and for your little one. So be sure to stock up on a lot of those zipper clothings. Make it easy for yourself. And then onesies are great to have on hand too. Because most of the time baby's going to be in a onesie and a diaper and maybe just snuggled up with you and your partner, getting some skin to skin. So those are great to have on hand as well. So those are my little tips and tricks on what to stock up on in your postpartum recovery space for your healing. There is so much more that goes into this. I only wanted to keep this at no longer than half an hour training. So like I said at the beginning, it's not a comprehensive list, but this is a great thing to get you started with stocking up on what you need in your postpartum recovery kit. If you're making it yourself, as I mentioned in the beginning, you can buy kits. That's fine as well. Just kind of do what works best for you, your budget, and your family. But I love creating my own because it's just, you can really personalize it and customize it to what you will probably personally use, or it can make it easier to return things if you don't end up using all of them that are unopened and unused. So just a little side note there. But as a reminder, feel free to book a coffee chat with me. We can talk about this and so much more about your journey, about enrolling in the P4 program to help you feel as prepared as possible for your fourth trimester and beyond. And we are going to continue this wonderful mini series on Thursday when we talk about creating the diaper changing station. And then on Saturday, we will conclude this mini series with talking about nutrients dense foods and snacks that you can have on hand in your recovery space, why that's so important, and some of my top favorite items I'm going to share with you on having stocked up ahead of time to make that happen. So thank you for joining me for this mini series. book a coffee chat with me in my bio on Instagram or in the comments below Facebook. And if you need anything at all, my DMs are always open. So let me know how I can help. I will talk to you all very soon.